They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but strength is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like a version of you that no longer laughs the same way. The people who hurt you the most are rarely strangers. They are the ones who knew your soft spots, the ones who learned the map of your heart and still pressed where it bruised. Why is it that the deepest wounds often come from the closest hands? Why does betrayal echo louder than kindness? And why do those moments, the ones you wish never happened, quietly reshape who you become? There is a strange, uncomfortable truth hidden here. Pain is not only something that breaks you, it is something that reorganizes you. Tonight, this silent transformation will be explored, the erosion, the resistance, the unexpected growth. Let's begin.
There is a particular kind of pain that does not scream. It sinks. It settles in the chest like cold river sediment, heavy and difficult to move. Strangers can disappoint you. They can insult you. They can even betray you. But they do not rearrange you. The people who hurt you the most are the ones you once let inside your unguarded spaces, the ones who saw you tired, the ones who heard your fears at 2 a.m., the ones who knew which memories still stung and which dreams still felt fragile. Closeness is not just emotional proximity, it is psychological access. When you trust someone, your nervous system relaxes around them, your guard lowers, your brain categorizes them as safe. In that state of openness, you become porous. Words enter deeper. Actions imprint stronger. And when harm comes from someone labeled as safe, it does not register as a simple event. It registers as a rupture. Why does betrayal feel different from ordinary conflict? Because betrayal is not just about what was done. It is about who did it. You can endure criticism from someone you do not respect. You can tolerate distance from someone you never depended on. But when the person who once felt like shelter becomes the storm, the mind struggles to reconcile the contradiction. How can someone who held your hand also push you away? How can warmth and harm live in the same body? This confusion is not weakness. It is the mind attempting to repair a broken map. Human beings are wired for attachment. Safety is not just physical, it is relational. From childhood onward, survival becomes intertwined with connection. When that connection fractures, the nervous system does not interpret it as a simple disagreement. It interprets it as threat. That is why your heart raced, why your stomach dropped, why sleep felt impossible. It was not overreacting. It was a system in alarm. And yet here is the quiet truth that often goes unspoken. The depth of the wound reveals the depth of the bond. The pain you felt was proportional to the trust you offered. This is why some memories linger longer than they should. Not because you were dramatic, not because you were weak, but because something intimate was touched. The people who hurt you the most were not random chapters. They were central characters. And when central characters shift holes, from protector to source of pain, the story of who you are begins to tremble. This is where change quietly begins, not in anger, not in revenge, but in the first crack of disillusionment.
Not every wound reshapes you. Some hurts pass like weather. A sharp word, a misunderstanding, a brief disappointment. They sting, and then they fade. But then there are the other kinds, the ones that feel older than the moment itself, the ones that awaken something ancient inside you. Why does one person's rejection feel survivable, while another's feels catastrophic? The answer rarely begins in the present. Long before this relationship, long before this betrayal, your nervous system was learning what love meant. As a child, connection was not optional, it was survival. Approval meant safety. Attention meant protection. Emotional closeness meant you would not be left alone in the dark. In those early years, your brain quietly built a template. This is what care feels like. This is what abandonment feels like. This is what you must do to keep love. Some learned that love was steady. Some learned it was unpredictable. Some learned it disappeared without warning. And so, when someone later mirrors that early pattern, even subtly, something deep inside recognizes it. This feels familiar. Not always in a comforting way, sometimes in a haunting way. If you once had to work hard to feel chosen, you may later cling to people who feel slightly out of reach. If love once felt conditional, you may become hyper-aware of shifts in tone or distance. If affection once vanished suddenly, your body may panic at the smallest withdrawal. This is not irrationality, it is pattern recognition. The mind does not only respond to what is happening, it responds to what it remembers. When someone hurts you in a way that echoes your earliest fears, being ignored, replaced, dismissed, betrayed, the pain compounds. It is not just this moment that hurts, it is every unresolved moment that quietly attaches itself to it. That is why you may have felt overwhelmed by emotions that seemed too big for the situation, why the reaction surprised even you, why the grief felt disproportionate. It was not just about them, it was about history resurfacing. Sometimes the people who change you the most are not the ones who hurt you in new ways, but the ones who unknowingly touch old wounds. And when old wounds reopen, they do not simply hurt, they demand attention. They force awareness. They expose fragile foundations you did not know were still unstable. The impact is so strong because it shakes more than the present relationship. It shakes your inner blueprint of safety. And when the blueprint cracks, you cannot return to who you were before. Something deeper has been revealed.
When someone you love hurts you, the pain is not only emotional, it is neurological. The brain does not separate heartbreak from danger as neatly as logic would like. To your nervous system, relational rupture can feel alarmingly similar to physical threat. The same regions that activate during physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, also light up when you experience rejection or betrayal. This is why the ache feels physical, why your chest tightens, why your appetite disappears, why your thoughts loop endlessly at night. The brain is trying to solve a threat it does not understand. Attachment creates neural pathways of safety. Over time, a trusted person becomes woven into your regulation system. Their voice calms you, their presence steadies you, their reassurance lowers cortisol and quiets vigilance. When that same person becomes unpredictable or harmful, the system destabilizes. Safety turns uncertain. Certainty turns volatile. The mind begins scanning for answers. What did you miss? What signs were there? Was it your fault? This hyperanalysis is not obsession. It is survival-driven pattern correction. The brain wants to prevent the rupture from happening again. It replays conversations, reinterprets memories, magnifies details, searching for the moment where control might have been possible. At the same time, something more subtle occurs: cognitive dissonance. The person who hurt you does not match the person you believed them to be. Your brain holds two conflicting images, the comforter and the betrayer, the warmth and the wound. And the brain dislikes contradiction, so it tries to resolve it, sometimes by minimizing the harm, sometimes by blaming yourself, sometimes by rewriting history. This is how trauma bonding quietly forms. The cycle of affection and pain strengthens attachment rather than weakens it. Intermittent kindness becomes more powerful than consistent care. Uncertainty intensifies emotional dependence. It is not weakness, it is conditioning. The nervous system becomes trained to associate relief with the very person who caused the distress. Like a storm that also provides shelter, the contradiction deepens the imprint. Over time, this rewires perception. You may become more guarded, more vigilant, more sensitive to subtle shifts, or paradoxically, more numb. The brain adapts, it must. Pain rewires neural pathways. It reshapes what feels safe, what feels risky, what feels possible. It adjusts your threshold for trust. It refines your radar for inconsistency. This is why the people who hurt you most often change how you move through the world afterward. Not because you chose to become different, but because your brain, in its quiet intelligence,
decided you had to.
There is a moment after deep hurt when silence becomes louder than any argument. Outwardly, life may continue. Conversations happen, days pass, you function. But internally, something fractures into two opposing forces. Part of you still remembers the warmth. Part of you cannot forget the wound. This is the civil war no one sees. How can you miss someone who caused your pain? How can love and resentment occupy the same space? How can longing coexist with self-protection? The mind prefers clarity, villains and heroes, right and wrong, stay or leave. But human attachment is rarely that clean. When someone important hurts you, your emotions do not switch off, they split. One side defends the memory of who they were. The other side catalogs every moment that proved who they are now. You replay the good times, then you replay the betrayal. Back and forth, like a pendulum that refuses to settle. This oscillation is not indecision. It is attachment. Feels like danger, even when it is necessary. Inside you, two truths wrestle. I love them. This hurts me. And until those truths are integrated, the conflict continues. But something is shifting beneath the chaos. Disillusionment. The illusion of perfect safety is dissolving. The fantasy of who they were is thinning. Reality, however painful, is beginning to take form. This is the beginning of change, not the loud transformation people speak of, but the quiet recalibration of what you will and will not tolerate. There comes a moment when the storm inside you grows tired, not because the hurt disappears, not because forgiveness suddenly feels easy, but because the mind can no longer sustain the war. At first, pain is loud. It demands attention. It replays scenes. It asks questions that have no satisfying answers. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something changes. The questions soften. Instead of, why did they do this to me? A different question appears. What is this showing me? This is the quiet shift. Awareness replaces reaction. You begin to see patterns that were once hidden by hope. Moments you excused now look clearer. Behaviors you minimized reveal their repetition. The emotional erosion that once felt confusing now feels undeniable. Clarity rarely arrives with fireworks. It arrives with calm. You may notice that you are no longer desperate for closure, no longer rehearsing conversations in your head, no longer seeking proof that you were right. There is a subtle acceptance. This happened. It hurt. And it revealed something important. Pain, when observed instead of resisted, becomes information. It teaches you where your boundaries were too flexible, where your needs were unspoken, where your fear of losing someone outweighed your fear of losing yourself. And here lies an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the person who hurt you did not create your blind spots. They exposed them. This realization can feel humbling. It removes the simplicity of blame. It asks you to look inward without self-condemnation. You begin to understand that love without self-awareness can turn into self-abandonment, that loyalty without discernment can turn into quiet suffering. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming conscious. The illusion that love alone guarantees safety begins to dissolve. In its place, something steadier forms: discernment, the ability to notice inconsistency, the courage to trust your discomfort, the strength to leave situations that once felt impossible to walk away from. You are not hardening, you are refining, and refinement often feels like loss before it feels like growth. The person who hurt you becomes less central in your thoughts, not because they did not matter, but because you are no longer organizing your identity around the wound. The energy once spent analyzing them begins to return to you. This is how change happens, quietly, gradually, from the inside outward.
There is a subtle transformation that follows deep hurt. It is not dramatic. There is no announcement, no sudden epiphany, but over time, the person who once felt fractured by pain begins to feel whole in unexpected ways. The people who hurt you leave invisible marks, fingerprints on your perception, your boundaries, your empathy. At first, these marks feel like scars, heavy, obvious, defining. But slowly, they become the architecture of a new self. Pain teaches discernment. It clarifies priorities. It sharpens intuition. You begin to notice patterns in others you once overlooked. You feel more attuned to subtleties, more honest with yourself, more protective of your inner world. The process is neither linear nor painless. Some days feel like taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Doubts flare, old wounds echo. The mind occasionally drifts towards nostalgia, rewriting memories with longing or regret. Yet the transformation continues quietly, like water shaping stone. You may find that laughter returns differently, that joy feels more deliberate, more authentic, that relationships, new or old, are no longer entered into blindly. You are learning to navigate connection with awareness instead of fear, hope, or obligation. Empathy deepens, but so does discernment. Compassion grows, but so does self-preservation. The person who hurt you the most did not break you. They revealed the fragile parts of your heart, the hidden vulnerabilities you did not see. And by encountering those truths, you have built a foundation that is stronger, more conscious, and more resilient. The erosion that once felt destructive has become sculpting. The fire that once burned you now illuminates your inner contours. The shadows of the past no longer control your steps. They guide them. Change is never owed to pain, but it often comes through it. Even after the hurt fades, even after clarity arrives, some people never fully leave. Not physically, not always consciously, but in subtler ways, in the architecture of your mind, in the rhythm of your emotions, in the invisible compass of your choices. They remain as markers, silent teachers of boundaries you had not yet drawn, reflections of strength you did not know you carried, reminders of sensitivity you once doubted. The people who hurt you the most are never completely erased. Their presence lingers, not as bitterness, but as a quiet signature on the way you navigate trust. Their echoes live in the vigilance you now carry, in the compassion you extend, in the discernment you exercise. Pain leaves fingerprints, and those fingerprints shape how you see the world, who you allow in, and how you protect your heart. Some marks are tender, some are firm, all are instructive. You may find yourself more patient with fragility, more aware of duplicity, more sensitive to honesty, more committed to authenticity in yourself and in others. It is paradoxical. The same person who once caused you confusion now becomes part of your emotional education. The wound that felt unbearable now becomes a reference point, a quiet lens through which you measure connection, love, and safety. This is not revenge. This is integration. The people who change you the most often do so not through their love, but through their absence, their failure, their imperfection. And in that absence, in that imperfection, you learn to become someone new.
If this reflection has stirred something quiet inside you, If it has mirrored feelings you have long carried alone, know this: you are not defined by the people who hurt you. Their actions were part of your story, but they are not the authors of your identity. You are not the wound, nor the betrayal, nor the absence. You are the witness, the one who endured, who felt, who learned. It is natural to carry echoes of pain. It is natural to feel cautious, to hesitate, to linger in the memory of what was lost. But within that caution also resides awareness. Within that hesitation resides wisdom. Within that lingering resides growth. If you'd like to stay connected, this channel is a place where we explore the hidden corners of the human heart, a space to reflect on what is often unspoken, to understand the invisible threads that shape who we are. You are welcome here. Sharing your thoughts in the comments is optional, but know that even one word of reflection may help someone else feel less alone. Your experience, quietly expressed, has value. Take care of yourself. You deserve gentleness. You deserve to heal.